أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ومن الناس من يشري نفسه ابتغاء مرضات الله والله رؤوف بالعباد يا أيها الذين آمنوا ادخلوا في السلم كافة ولا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين فإن زللتم من بعد ما جاءتكم البينات فاعلموا أن الله عزيز حكيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي فالحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ثم أما بعد. Alhamdulillah, we're continuing after a long break, and inshallah ta'ala we'll be regular every Monday night from here on until the end of the surah, hopefully before next Ramadan. Inshallah ta'ala. We're already up to ayah number 207, which is good progress. The Surah al-Baqarah is 286 ayat, and if we just cover one or two ayat a day, I think we can get there, inshallah ta'ala. One or two ayat a day meaning a week. Now, the passage that we were dealing with was after the discussion about Hajj in the Quran and about remembering Allah, and there's a really beautiful subject transition that happens. Hajj, as all of you know, and every Muslim knows, is supposed to be a turning point in the life of a Muslim, right? So you don't come back from Hajj the same way that you were when you left. Something happens in you, you have a new commitment, a new resolve, a new sort of thinking about your deen, about your purpose in life. And there's this spiritual high that's not just supposed to be emotional, it's supposed to be kind of an intellectual thing. You're supposed to really rethink the direction of your life and where business is going, where career is going, what aspirations for family you and I have. Everything is supposed to be recalibrated at that momentous occasion. I've talked in previous talks when we were going through the ayat of Hajj about how Hajj itself is like simulation for the Day of Judgment. It's actually, simulation training for Judgment Day. So it really does put life in perspective. And after those few days of just concentrated dua and leaving everything else behind, we're supposed to have this new sense of commitment to Allah Azza wa Jal. Now, the next passage after that, what we talked about, was actually someone who does not internalize the teachings of this deen, the hypocrite, who tries to impress the Prophet ﷺ with his elaborate speech. We already had a conversation about that. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يُعْجِبُكَ قَوْلُهُ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَهُوَ أَلَدُّ الْخِصَامِ وَيُشْهِدُ اللَّهُ عَلَى مَا فِي قَلْبِهِ وَهُوَ أَلَدُّ الْخِصَامِ. In that now, on the contrast now we're going to read about the other personality. That personality, the hypocrite's personality, it's like the guy who didn't even benefit from something as huge as the Hajj. You know how the Prophet ﷺ describes a person who makes it all the way to Hajj, and people making it to Hajj in our time is different, and people making it to Hajj at the Prophet's time ﷺ is different. So when he says somebody made it to Hajj, somebody gave up their life to make it to Hajj. I mean, seriously, they didn't just take a flight. And they don't complain about, man, it had to have a stopover in Chicago. They didn't have to complain about that. Or, went from Amsterdam to there. They went walking, for months and months, and got there. And then even in that incredible case, how could you question the integrity and the quality of that person's Hajj? But that guy goes and he's begging and he's crying Allah, holding on to the veil of the Kaaba, and he's crying, and the Prophet describes that his clothing is haram, the food he eats is haram, the income, the money he spends is haram. فَأَنَّا يُسْتَجَابُ لَهُ. How is he going to be responded to? How can his du'as have any value? And I mean, that guy, the effort he put in. Even if you think about that scenario, it's a very serious thing. So there are people who can put a lot of effort into Hajj and still get nothing out of it. May Allah not make any of us from those kinds of people. And Hajj is coming, inshallah. May Allah accept all of it from all of us, and all of us that are going. May Allah bring them back safely and accept their Hajj. Now, Allah Azza wa Jalla now talks about the contrary. What is supposed to happen after Hajj? What kind of person what kind of personality is supposed to be built? This is the character of the Muslim that's supposed to be revived. There are weekly meetings, You know, they're actually shorter, they're daily short meetings, then there's a weekly meeting at your office, and then there's like this convention, right? So there's the weekly meetings, are actually daily short meetings are the salawat, bil jama'ah. Then you have a weekly big get-together, which is what? Jumu'ah. And then there's the yearly convention, which is what? It's the Hajj. And you know, in the big convention, you're supposed to be super motivated. And you come out like fresh, like yes, you know, fired up. And now this fire up, what does Allah say? وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَشْرِي نَفْسَهُ ابْتِغَاءَ مَرْضَاتِ اللَّهِ. Among the people is someone who sells himself. يَشْرِي نَفْسَهُ. Hadith literature tells us, you know, every human being, بَائِعٌ نَفْسَهُ. He sells himself. But that context is different. You and I sell ourselves at work. You give 8 hours of your life, 9 hours of your life up for a paycheck. You sold a part of your life, these breaths that you take in and pull out, these inhales and exhales, you gave them up to your office to earn an income. Somebody gives them up to the shopping cart or the grocery store register or the taxi cab that they're driving. They gave up a part of their life. They would rather not be doing that. None of us would rather be at work. We would rather be relaxing, rather be with our children, but we give up a part of our life. In some sense, the commodity that we're selling is our own time. You know, in the modern sense, it's a cheap expression, because time is worth so much more, but they say time is money. But it captures some of the essence of how we sell ourselves. We give up a part of our time, because our time is our life at the end of the day. But in this hadith, or in this ayah actually, another scene is being described, another kind of sale is being described. Yashri nafsahu, he sells himself. And whenever you sell something, it's always an exchange. You gave something up, and you're getting something else in exchange. Yes? And whatever you're willing to part with, it better be worth what you're going to get. So I'm not going to go into a store and part with my $5 bill for something I don't think is worth it. I really have to think that what I'm getting is worth this money. Even more, better, it's a good deal, which means I'm giving less and getting more, right? That's when I give something up. Now what's the most valuable asset we have? Ourselves. Our entire being. That's the most valuable asset you and I have. And actually even a small extension of ourselves. My finger is not myself, it's just a small part of me. I'm not willing to give it up though. If you offer me any kind of money, I'm not willing to part with my finger. This is just a part of me. This is not even the whole of me. But I'm not willing to part with it because it's too much value. The ayah says there's somebody who sells his entire being. Yashri nafsahu. In pursuit of what could be worth it. What could be worth it that this individual that Allah is describing is giving his entire motivations, his entire aspirations, her entire, future goals. They're giving all of them up for one purpose, submitting them to one purpose. Ibtigha'a mardatillah. In pursuit of the great pleasure of Allah. Mardat. Mardat is called masdar mimi. This expression in Arabic, the Arabic word is rida. Like the expression says, rida nasi ghayatun la tudrak. Right? Pleasing people is a goal you'll never reach. People will never be happy with you. But this ayah Allah talks about, now Allah is talking about a guy who gave his life up trying to please Allah, and not just please him extremely. Mardat. Ibtigha'a, lam yakul, ibtigha'a rida Allah. La, ibtigha'a mardat illa. Mardat aqwa bikathir. It's a much stronger word. It's a much stronger word. So he really, really wants to make Allah happy. But the question is, what does it mean that he sold himself? Does that mean he quit his job? Does that mean he left his home and just went on the path of Islam or something? What does it mean? In simple terms, what this means, or what it refers to, is a very large concept in the Quran that's reiterated over and over and over again. Allah talks about our motives with Him, our intentions with Him. He talks about it in business language many times in the Quran. Allah, for example, calls it tijara. هَلْ أَدُلُّكُمْ عَلَى تِجَارَةٍ. Allah calls the oath of allegiance with Him, فَاسْتَبْشِرُوا بِبَيْعِكُمُ الَّذِي بَايَعْتُمْ بِهِ. إِنَّ اللَّهَ اشْتَرَى وَالْبَيْعِ فِي نِهَايَةِ الْآيَةِ. Purchasing and selling. Business. You sell something, you get something. This terminology is all over the Quran. The question is why? The answer to that is, we are in fact giving something up for something much more valuable in return. Much, much more valuable in return. But this return doesn't come right away. I don't know if Allah is happy with me or not. I don't know. But I'm still going to pursue making Him happy. In every other relationships human beings experience, like you try to make your wife happy. Good luck with that, by the way. You know, she tries to make you happy. You know, you try to make your brother happy. You try to make your in-laws happy. Well, you know how that goes, right? So you try to make people happy. You do everything you can, and guess what you find at the end of it all? You're still not happy. How many times people have argument in their home? No matter what I do, you're never happy. So the son runs away from home. Why did you run away? Well, no matter what I did, my dad was never happy with me, bro. He's never satisfied. What can I do? And in every other relationship, when you don't see that the other side is happy with you, then you give up. I don't want to do this anymore. The wife will give up and say, I don't want to be in this marriage anymore. The husband will say, no matter what I do, she's always unhappy with me. Why would I want to continue to be miserable myself and keep her miserable? It's just not working out. She's not happy, I'm not happy. But in the case of my relationship with Allah, I don't know if Allah is happy with me. It's a very difficult question to answer. How will I know if Allah is happy with me or not? And this question, one of the great Zuhad was looking for the answer to this question. How am I supposed to know if Allah is happy with me or not? How do I know where I stand? And finally, eventually the answer he came to, I think it has a lot of wisdom in it. It's not a hadith or an ayah, but I still think the statement has a lot of wisdom in it. Is you and I have to take a good look at how we spend our day. What does Allah have us do in 24 hours? That should be a pretty good indication where we stand with Allah. If Allah has opened the doors for us to earn good deeds, if Allah has opened the opportunity for me to build my real estate in Jannah on a daily basis, He's giving me the opportunity to be good to my mother, and I'm taking the opportunity. He's giving me the opportunity to make salat in the masjid, and I'm taking the opportunity. He's giving the opportunity for me to learn this deen, or teach this deen, or share this deen, or practice this deen, or guard my shame. There are things that I'm doing on a daily basis that make Allah happy. That I know for a fact Allah said these things make me happy, and I find that Allah is giving me the opportunity to do these things. That in and of itself should fill us with hope. It's not a guarantee, but at least it gives me hope. At least Allah is not surrounding me with things I know make Him angry. At least I'm in the company, in an environment, in a culture that I know is pleasing to Allah. So one of the things, for example, for us sitting in this masjid, one of the things that should fill us with hope is the fact that we're sitting in a masjid. We're not sitting at home watching TV. The fact that we're sitting here is also a good sign that Allah is happy with us. Or there's hope for us. It's not a guarantee at the end. Allah does not give us guarantees. Guarantees come on Judgment Day. All you get here is struggle. But this person is ready to make the fill and not give up. يَشْرِي نَفْسَهُ ابْتِغَاءَ مَرْضَاتِ اللَّهِ. Now I turn to the younger audience here. What does it mean for you guys? Our religion, subhanAllah, we have to be aware of where we stand in the world. Where Islam stands, where the Muslims stand at their time. So we don't just think about Islam at the time of Umar radiallahu anhu and at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's important, sure. But we have to have a really keen eye on where Islam stands in the world today. Because we're living today. And you know what's happening in the world, I'm specifically addressing the youth in the audience. You know, today in most of the Muslim world, there's two populations of Muslims and they're furthering themselves more and more and more and more and more. By the day. It is happening in Egypt, it's happening in Bangladesh, it's happening in Pakistan, Indonesia, you name it. There's a partition happening. And what kind of partition is this? There is a significant population of people that want nothing to do with religion. Muslims. They want nothing to do with salat. They see a bearded person or a covered woman, they get angry. These people are the reason our country is not successful. These mullahs are holding us back. You know? They're not just not practicing their religion. They don't even like somebody who looks religious. They're the problem, you know. And that population is growing. And more and more and more of our youth, the Muslim youth, are developing that attitude towards the religion. On the other extreme, you have people that look extremely religious, and the more religious they get, the angrier they get at the world. They get angrier at their wife and their husband. They get angrier at their neighbor. They really get angrier at the guys that aren't religious. So there's a hatred brewing inside the Muslim world. You know one of the craziest things? Recent observations. You may not agree with my observation. This is my own observation. Allahu A'lam. At least I can talk about my own society, Pakistan. At least this is happening in other places too. There are two words that are antonyms. You know what antonyms are, right? Opposites? Religious, modern. The actual antonyms are religious and irreligious. Religious and not religious. Religious and secular. No. Our antonyms are what? Religious versus modern. As though you cannot be modern and religious at the same time. That doesn't make any sense. To them it doesn't make any sense. To be religious you have to live 1400 years ago or pretend like you're living 1400 years ago. You have nothing to do with the modern world. You're living in a different time. You don't belong in this time. That's the mentality that's developing. Who is going to crush that mentality, that hate? That these people lived in a different time. They don't even belong here. They don't even belong in our time. What they have to say, everything they have to say is outdated. It's not modern. These people represent a prehistoric religion. So they themselves are prehistoric and outdated. Who is going to change that mentality? People that are both modern and religious. Modern does not mean that your hijab came off, guys. That only means modern in Pakistan. Okay? Modern does not mean that you're going to concerts. But in modern family, that only means that in Pakistan. Modern means you're educated, you're well educated in worldly sciences. You're a professional in any field, in the medical field, in the technical field, in the social sciences, in the human sciences, and yet at the same time you're committed to your religion. That species of Muslim is a very rare find in the Muslim world now. That species is dying. And you know where we have the opportunity to create that species and grow it and nurture it? Right here. Right here. It's happening. It's already happening. And you know what? It's the Muslim world is noticing. Did you know that a lot of YouTube videos and lectures that are given here by Muslim youth are listened to in Indonesia, in Pakistan, in Bangladesh, in Malaysia, in Egypt, in Syria? I was at the convention a couple of weeks back at the Ustad convention last week, and I met a group that's, they're trying to get humanitarian aid for the struggles in Syria. The sister comes up to me and tells me, we're listening to your podcast on Juz Amma. And I was like, why? Why are you guys are in Syria, man? Hub of knowledge. But you know what's happening with the youth? They're actually looking to Muslim youth in the West, particularly for leadership. They're looking for it. There's a reason. There's a responsibility Muslims in the West are sitting on to show how Islam can be lived in our time without the anger towards the other. And how Islam can beautify our personal life, communal life, and the world altogether. How it can beautify. This is the responsibility we sit on, but that means you and I shouldn't just be worried about career. Again, I'm referring to the young guys, and I'll talk to my generation. My generation is the guys that went to college in the 90s. When I was going to college, MSA was a different animal. Some of the younger guys that are sitting here, college scene, MSA was a different animal. These guys were dedicated, man. These guys were dedicated. When I first joined an MSA, I had an MSA meeting, I still remember like it was yesterday. It was at Columbia University in New York, right? And there's 20 MSAs, one representative from each sitting in a circle, and they're talking about how they're going to sponsor one orphan from a Muslim country every year. They're not going to do a fundraiser. They're going to spend out of their own pocket, those 20 people, and they're going to sponsor an orphan every year. And make sure one gets adopted, and sponsor a child hifz in some part of the Muslim world, etc. And I was like, these are freshmen in college. Whoa, these guys are on a different level. They think big. That's incredible, But you know what's the sad thing about my generation? These amazing people graduated, then they got into their careers, and then what happened? They disappeared. They disappeared. I maybe see them at Jumu'ah. Maybe. They might watch a video here and there. Them being contributors like they used to be. I know family is important, and a family is a priority. But that doesn't mean you forget that there's more. That there's some other responsibility you and I have, And maybe they're working in different ways. And that's possibly the case. But a good number of them just disappeared into the woodworks. And you call them and you catch up and you say, what's going on? And what's the usual answer? Just work, man. Just work. Is that what life is about? Is that what it's about? And also, is there nothing more? We have to leave our mark, this deen's mark, before we leave here. People shouldn't remember us, but they should remember Allah as a result of our efforts. If Allah puts barakah in them, This is a person who sold himself. We should think of ourselves on a mission. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَشْرِي نَفْسَهُ ابْتِغَاءَ مَرْضَاتِ اللَّهِ. Then Allah adds this beautiful phrase, وَاللَّهُ رَؤُوفٌ بِالْعِبَادِ. Ra'uf, ra'fa in Arabic, compassion. Also consideration. You know how you say in English, I know how you feel? That's ra'fa. I know how you feel. You know how you talk to somebody and you say, man, I'm trying to talk to my dad, but he doesn't understand where I'm coming from. I tried to talk to the imam, he couldn't relate to me. I need to talk to a counselor who can relate to me. He knows where I'm coming from. He gets what I'm saying. That's ra'fa. Allah says, I know what you're going through. You know what that applies? If you and I struggle for this deen, it requires sacrifices. You have to give things up. You have to be in some sort of discomfort, and Allah knows what you had to give up. He knows the struggles you and I had to make, and each one of us in our personal lives are going to have to make those judgment calls. What am I going to give to Allah? What things am I going to sacrifice? Whoever helps his deen hurts his dunya, the Prophet told us, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Something of my dunya I'm going to have to give up. Something's going to have to take a back seat, and something else is going to have to take a priority. And for each one of us, because Allah has blessed us with different talents, different abilities, different capabilities, different opportunities, each one of us have to ask ourselves a different question. How am I going to serve Allah? What am I going to do? How am I going to give to this deen? And based on what Allah has given you, you have to come up with an honest answer for yourself. You know, even if, and for the women that are listening, how are you going to give Islam to your family? How are you going to deliver it to your children? That's a big responsibility. And no, there's no bigger influence on my children than their mother. It's a huge responsibility on her shoulders. On the fathers here, how am I going to give Islam? How am I going to give my children a pride in Islam as they're coming up? By the time my child is 13, 14 years old, how do I make sure that there's a hadith being said by the imam after salat, and he doesn't sit there and go whatever? Or he doesn't open up his phone and start playing a game, and he pays attention like this is the most important thing in the world. How do I put that attitude in my kid when he's 13, when he's at the I don't care age? That's an agenda, guys. That's something we got to think about. Something that requires a lot of effort. So this is selling ourselves for the pursuit of the pleasure of Allah. Now, last thing I share with you guys, us particularly, alhamdulillah, in the Irving community, and the DFW community by extension. Allah has blessed us with colossal masajid. Inshallah they get bigger. Okay? Colossal. I mean, I remember going to masjids in New York City, which were basements of apartments, one bedrooms, where Jummah was being held on staircases. You know, the Warren Street masjid, I used to go big Jummah in downtown, in the financial district, we used to pray on the pavement. You better be 15 minutes early before khutbah starts, or you're going to pray on the street. That's where you're going to pray. Subhanallah. We have incredible facilities here. Incredible. It's just on another level. But is that making us complacent? Like, alhamdulillah, we already established the deen of Allah in Irving, 75062. We're done. Everybody else has to establish the deen now. No. These are the luxuries and ni'am and amenities that Allah has given us. How did we put them to work? You don't think Allah's going to ask us? I hooked you guys up. I kept the real estate prices low in Texas, so you guys could build. I kept you next to the airport. I had you build, housing complexes where all of you could live together. What did you do? What did you do? What did you do for the neighborhood? What did you do for the city of Irving? How did the word of Allah get out from you people? We can't complain about anybody else. We're actually supposed to be more answerable than anybody else. That's what we're supposed to be. Our masajid are filled. That's a point of joy, but it's also a point of concern. Man, we're going to be asked. we got stuff to do. So we all have to start thinking like we've sold ourselves to Allah. How are we going to take this deen further? We're not in this neighborhood so we can save ourselves from the influences of kufr and our children can be in a safe environment. That's cool. But now you're thinking defense, guys. Islam it's not about defense. Because when you're in defense in sports, what does that mean? When you're always on defense? You're winning or losing? You're losing. You're losing if you're on defense. Don't think about offense. Take the ball in your hand. How do we give this to others? How do we spread this? How do we go and how do we engage? This is the question we have to ask. May Allah Azza wa Jal give us all the ability to be counted among those that have sold themselves for the sake of Allah. May Allah really help all of our communities across the world, and especially in this town, help us appreciate the gifts that Allah has given us and to materialize them and to put them to work the way that they're supposed to be put to work. May Allah Azza wa Jalla accept every big and small effort that we're making and overlook the many shortcomings that you and I have. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al-Hakim wa nafa'ni wa iyyakum bil ayati wa dhikr al-Hakim. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا ادخلوا في السلم كافة ولا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين. فإن زللتم من بعد ما جاءتكم البينات فاعلموا أن الله عزيز حكيم. هل ينظرون إلا أن يأتيهم الله في ظلل من الغمام والملائكة وقضي الأمر وإلى الله ترجع الأمور. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. فالحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. ثم أما بعد. Once again, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah ta'ala, today we'll do a brief study of ayat number 208, and hopefully we can reach ayat number 210 of Surah al-Baqarah. Allah Azza wa Jal says, after the one who sold himself completely for the pleasure of Allah, the call is made to the rest of us. It's a really interesting transition. On the one hand, Allah compliments and praises someone who sacrificed himself and given himself up for the deen. And on the other hand, there's the rest of you and me. So now we're addressed. Everybody else is addressed. You find yourself within them or not. And if you don't, here's what you should do. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu udkhulu fis silmi kaffatan. Those of you that believe, and here it kind of implies that as for the rest of you believers, as of the rest of you that claim to have Islam and Iman, udkhulu, enter, fis silmi. Silm is, it's understood basically almost majority as Islam, as salam itself. Silm literally, however, means safety, security, calm, peace. And fis silmi, enter into the fold of Islam. That's how it's commonly translated, into submission. Also, silm is also submission before an enemy in the Arabic language. So, when two sides are fighting and one says, okay, they raise the white flag and they give up, that's also silm. To give up before the enemy and to just do what they're asking you to do, give in to the demands, give up your territory to them. This is also silm. And the impression with that is that we're almost as though the human being is in a struggle with himself and with Allah Azza wa Jal. And you should stop struggling and just give up. Just quit it. End this rebellion, end this fight, and just give up before Allah. And all of you should do so kaffatan, entirely and completely. We've had this conversation under different themes before, but I want to reiterate certain things. This selective submission to Allah. This is the ayah that sort of, in a very comprehensive way, addresses this problem. The ayah actually, in some sense, is complete. إِذَا قَالْ سُبْحَانَهُ أُدْخُلُوا فِي السِّلْمِ. Enter into the fold of peace. Enter into submission. But he added the hal, kaffatan. What state? Completely and absolutely. And some ulama that focus on rhetoric and balagha and things like that, they even talk about the difference between jami'an and kaffatan. Jami'an also means altogether. But kaffa, one of the interesting differences between them is that the syllable is stretched. So actually when you're reciting it with tajweed, you're reciting udkhulu fi silmi kaffa. It's really long. And the prolonged nature of it is actually to extend the meaning of it to إذا تأكد اللفظ تأكد المعنى. If you emphasize the word, you're emphasizing the meaning. And if you're stretching the word, you're stretching the meaning also. So all together, there is no dimension of your life and mine that shouldn't come under this fold. And this is actually something, I know this dars is supposed to be sort of independent of current events and whatever's going on, but it's hard because we're human beings, right? We're impacted and we're also deeply saddened by the things that are happening around us, the immaturity, unfortunately, that the ummah displays at some occasions. Because out of its love, I mean, the emotions that the people are showing on the streets across the Muslim world, they're rooted in love, but you know what? They're not rooted in submission to deen. It's not. I mean, there are so many basic principles of deen that are violated, and it's supposedly under the banner of love for the Prophet ﷺ. That's not love. Love for the Prophet ﷺ is when we do whatever we do under submission of Allah's regulations. For just as a small example, there is no circumstance under which you can harm a guest. And one of the most prominent forms of guests are ambassadors. When an ambassador is across history, and you can't say the American ambassadors are an exception, and whatever other ambassadors are an exception, they're not. So long as they're embassies and they're ambassadors, they're sufara, then killing them is a crime across the board, because they're guests, they're supposed to be honored. And what even hurts even more, I met some Muslims recently that, especially the ambassador in Libya, the American ambassador that was killed, some Muslims that knew him. The man studied Arabic. The man studied Islam. He lived among the Muslims. He was a good neighbor to them. He cared about their concerns. Even when he spoke in government settings about the Libyan people, he said, we should not intervene as much as possible because I believe in the will of the Libyan people. I mean, it was one of the last things he said before he was killed. We're killing people like this because some idiot made a film on YouTube. It's really absurd. The two things are so disconnected. There's the two things, and I'm not even talking about whether we should kill or not. That's a separate subject. But this pointless rage, how is this Islam? What Islam is this? Where in the Quran is this justified? What practice of the Prophet ﷺ can you possibly attribute to this? And you know what people like to do? They like to take an isolated ayah or a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ or a story from the Sahaba and make sure that you don't run it by somebody who actually knows their deen. Make sure you don't ask a alim first, because you're the alim at this point. You can just quote a hadith and you're the mufti at this point. So much so that you can take a life. People can read something. Let's not discuss its context or its authenticity or anything else. Let's just take this is submission to Islam. This is love for Islam. What's gone wrong with us? We've gone crazy. And really, there's some real re-education in Islam that's needed for all of us. It's now literally become a matter of life and death. Literally. That we don't understand our deen. And it hurts not just the ummah that's there, the few crazies that are there make the entire ummah look bad there across the Atlantic. But also the work of da'wah of this deen. One of the obligations you and I have is to share the message of Islam. In whatever capacity we can, with our actions, with our character. An opportunity comes up to talk to your coworker a little bit about deen. You'll use the opportunity, you'll bring something up. You'll invite them to a da'wah program or whatever, or an open house at the masjid or an interfaith meeting. Well, these things take various forms. But you know what? Now all of those conversations are hijacked by the behavior of Muslims. All of them. And again, this is the dars. I don't want to digress too much from the dars, but the last thing I want to tell you, really seriously, the video had not even 30 hits before the Muslims picked it up. And please don't come and tell me it's a Jewish conspiracy or it's an American conspiracy. There's no American conspiracy for a bunch of crazy young people to go outside and yell and scream at the top of their heads. That's all us. Stop living in a fantasy world where they're all conspiring against us and it's never our fault. Let's own up to the fact that we're not educated, People, and I give khutbah about this. This is the last comment I'll share with you. We'll go back to the ayah. People ask me, I'll say it bluntly, really, because it really hurts me. People say, why do you Muslims react this way? Why are you guys so crazy? Christians don't do this. Jews don't do this. I have two things to say to that. One thing I have to say to that is recently, you guys know that one of the princess, member of the royal family in England, her indecent pictures were exposed and then they were put all over the place. And then after that, they were put all over the place. There are lawsuits going on now, and almost the entire media is against those who posted the pictures. The French should not have done it. It was indecent. They shouldn't have done it, right? And everybody's on the side of the royal family across the media. And right after that, they have a section on this video and all of that, and they talk about freedom of expression. Wait. Freedom of expression? Just the last clip, you said that French media outlet does not have the freedom of expression. It's indecent. It hurts the royal family. The British people are being insulted. It's not good of you guys to expose the royal family in this way. It's not, and I'm not a proponent of putting the pictures up. But I'm saying you just said that it's not a good thing. It's indecent. But when it comes to something that hurts a fifth of the world's population, not a royal family, not an island on this planet, a fifth of the world's population, you find something offensive and you say, well, what about freedom of speech? Why do you Muslims don't understand the freedom of speech? I don't think you guys understand the freedom of speech either, guys. Because you were just drawing a line between what's decent and indecent. Why don't you, and that line is drawn by the family that's serving the lawsuit. Well, here we are, we're offended. There should be something. I'm saying there is reason for outrage. We shouldn't just sit on our chairs and say, what can we do? That's not what I'm advocating either. We have a right to be offended. Absolutely. But it should be channeled in an educated way. That's one thing I have to say. The second I have to say is, when they say, why are you Muslims so crazy? People make fun of Jesus all the time. Christians don't go crazy. They make cartoons of Moses all the time. The Christian, the channel, it's really cool actually. The channel that claims to be like true to American values and Christian is Fox, right? They propose this is a Christian country and we should have, Christmas for a holiday, but we shouldn't have Eid, and they'll have shows on this. And then in the entertainment, they'll play, cartoons like Family Guy and like American Dad. And these shows, what do? They make fun of Jesus more than any other. They make fun of God. They depict God in these shows. They depict Musa alayhi salam, Ibrahim alayhi salam. They make cartoons of him. My first question is to the Muslims. Why aren't we offended when Jesus is made fun of? Why aren't we angry when Ibrahim alayhi salam is made fun of? Why aren't we angry when Musa alayhi salam? These are not our prophets? These are not prophets we love alayhi salatu wasalam? We're really angry when the Prophet is made fun of, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, but he's not the only one. Allah didn't just honor our Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, He honored all of them. So why this double standard? We love them, but not that much. Not so much to get angry. But we love our Prophet really a lot, because that's out of the question. So we're selective ourselves. And the second thing is, when you're asked, why are you Muslims this crazy? And I'm asking myself. I'm not even waiting to answer non-Muslim. I don't care about answering the non-Muslims right now. We have to have a conversation among ourselves. My answer to this question, Allahu Ta'ala A'lam, is because we are overwhelmingly an uneducated ummah. Overwhelmingly, we are an uneducated ummah. And I'm not talking about college education in high school, which is a problem in and of itself. We are uneducated in the fundamentals of our deen. We don't know what it means to behave as a Muslim, how to respond. These are not complex ilmi issues. These are the basics of Islamic ethics and morality and behavior that we're not educated in. We don't know how to respond to this stuff. We don't. And that's why we're just pulled this way and that way and the other way. It's insane. And it's really a mob. It's a mob. And you know how crazy our ignorance has gotten? I know I should stop about this, really. It's supposed to be a dars. But you know how crazy it's gotten? I can't help myself. It's gotten so crazy that the ummah has turned into these mobs where the ulama that are sane, that have wisdom, that have something to offer, can't even open their mouth. Because if they do, the mob will kill them. They're ready to pray behind the imam. They're ready to listen to the fatwa of the imam when it comes to which day should we celebrate Eid, or how should we make our taraweeh, etc., etc. They'll listen to him. But if he says, guys, calm down, this is not the way, they'll say he's a sellout. The Americans are paying a blah blah blah. They'll go after him. He can't even open his mouth. So actually, our imams and our scholars are being silenced by this mob. The ignorance is winning. The ignorance is hijacking the people of knowledge. They can't even speak. And if they do, they have to go into hiding. Because there's some group says these guys are, insanity. This is insanity. This has to stop. And these are the ayat, we just think of them. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu udkhulu fi silmi kaffa, enter into the fold of Islam entirely and completely. The rhetorical explanation of these ayat is, we have to establish the khilafah of Umar bin al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Yeah, but let's talk about establishing deen in your living room first, buddy. Let's establish a little bit of a deen in your work life, in your communal life, in whatever, some shred of Islam needs to be there in our communities before we can talk about the governance of Islam, And the other thing I tell you, in this within udkhulu fi silmi kaffatan, really like it's things Muslims should be thinking about. You know, Hindus in India, there's conflict sometimes between Hindus and Muslims, and sometimes it gets very, very violent, and we know that history, right? And there's mistakes on both sides, but whatever. This conflict happens. You know what the Hindus do to really offend the Muslims? You know what they do? They take a pig, they slaughter it, they throw it in front of a masjid. That's what they do. And the Muslims say, Astaghfirullah, this is what they've done. We should kill all these Hindus, pig in front of the masjid. Do Muslims hate pigs? Did Allah say you have to hate pigs? Is that a fundamental of our religion, that you hate pigs? Your kids are watching Charlotte's Web and you're like, Astaghfirullah, there's a pig cartoon on the TV. Change the channel. What is wrong with you? We can't eat them. They're filthy animals. We should stay away from them. Fine. It's not a fundamental teaching of our religion. But you know what? Because we have made that a big deal, even people who hate us say, well, we don't know much about Muslims, but we do know they hate pigs. That's all they know about you. That's a pretty good big statement about what you and I have been able to display about Islam. The first thing they should know about us is not that we hate pigs, is that we hate injustice. We hate shirk. We hate lying, we hate cheating, we hate stealing. Where did that go? They don't know that about us. All they know is we hate pigs. That's all they know. Isn't that a sad state of affairs? This is something you and I have to really rethink. How are we educating our ummah? How are we educating what does it mean to enter into the fold of Islam? Udkhulu fi silmi kaffatan. I'm not saying that it's okay to throw pigs in front of the masjid, please. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying we have to grow up. The ummah has to grow up. The children, मैं उर्दू में एक बात कहूँ, उर्दू में, जो बच्चा चिढ़ता ज़्यादा है ना, उसको छेड़ा भी ज़्यादा जाता है फिर. The kid that gets teased a lot, like, stop it. Guess what the bully does to him more? It bugs him more. These guys make a stupid film, and we go crazy. We just go nuts. What are we doing? We're encouraging them to make another one. Hey, let's see what happens next. What else could they do? It was the cartoon, then it was South Park, then it was this, and every few months, every year. Something, you can't just, and then we go crazy again, and we go crazy again, and we go crazy again. It's like, it's become a thing. It's become a sport. And you know what? We're fueling it, not them. They're not the ones fueling it, we are. We're the ones giving it flame. We're the ones giving it attention. Nobody else. Nobody else. Just, Salman Rushdie, for example, is the old school, right? The original killed this guy because he wrote against the Prophet ﷺ. Salman Rushdie's career was built on the hatred of Muslims. The guy made millions because of Muslims. He still is a second-rate writer. He has no good publications, but the only reason he gained his notoriety is because Muslims hate him. We made his life. We gave him his career. That's what we did. How easily we're toyed with. I was talking to one of my asatidha, he told me, what it feels like. It's like they're playing, in Spain they have bullfighting. That's what the Muslims are the bull. They just waved a little red flag, we were ready to go. That's what we've turned into. Just reactionary. Don't even have to think. But I love Islam, bro. And then people come and say, but what do you want us to do? Nothing? We gotta do something. You, sir, do nothing. The guy who says, we gotta do something, you need to calm down. You don't know what you're doing. When you're thinking like this, you've already got a problem. Our deen is one that does not allow us to judge matters by emotion. It does not. Our deen is one that teaches us to calm down, put our emotions in check, and judge matters for what they are, and then take a course of action based on ilm, on basira. We are not an impulsive people. And if you are trying to fire people, especially young people up, just fire up their, we gotta do something. I don't know what it is, but the least we can do is yell and scream. That's the least we could do. What good will it produce? Please tell me. I don't know, but at least we did something. We spoke against the truth. Spoke to who? Yourselves? Spoke to who? Who did you speak the truth to? The street, you just, they took down some Kentucky Fried Chicken and a McDonald's, right? Probably owned by a Muslim. Most likely. He said, this might be a good business idea in the Muslim world. Let me set up shop. Like, this is food of the kuffar. Destroy it. Seriously. This is what we've come to. We have to wake up. We as a people have to wake up. What does udkhulu fi silmi kaffa mean? My contention, Allahu Ta'ala a'lam, my contention is until we engage in a comprehensive education of the Quran, a comprehensive education of the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, a comprehensive one, across the board to the ummah, our attitudes will not mature. We will not change. Because the thing that fixes our mentality is our deen. The way to think about things, it comes from our deen. We're not studying our deen in the right way. We're not. And that's what's producing this craziness. And the Imam, may Allah Azza wa Jal help us all lift out of this strange state that we find ourselves in. Anyhow, Allah Azza wa Jal says, "Udkhulu fi silmi kaffa." I'll take 5 more minutes. وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا خُطُوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ. Don't end up following the footsteps of shaitan. On the one hand, we are commanded, enter into the fold of Islam, enter into the fold of safety and peace, and stop resisting against Allah entirely. Give yourself up. Okay? But then he says, don't follow the footsteps of shaitan. These two things are in connection with each other. And what they imply is, the shaitan is not going to come to you and say, leave Islam. He's just going to come to you and say, give me a little piece. Just give me something. Okay, you do so many good things. This one little haram thing is not going to make you kafir. You could just do this much. It's okay. So he'll say, okay, well, yeah, I am going to Hajj this year. So I could rack them up a little before I go. Ramadan is in a couple of weeks. It's okay. I mean, Batman came out the first night. I'll just watch it. And then after that, 29 more days of good deeds. It's okay. I could do that. It's okay. It's no big deal. So you're going to, what shaitan wants is just give me a little. Don't give me everything. So he says, udkhulu fi silm. It's like shaitan says, yeah, udkhulu fi silm. Just not what? Just not kafatan. Just not entirely. Don't be so extreme. Your finances should be dictated by Islam too. Your investments should be dictated by Islam too. The loans you're taking should be dictated by Islam too. Mostly Islam is challenged not in worship. That's lazy people. They don't pray, right? But the real problem we have with our deen is when it comes to money. That's when the real problem of our deen is. And when it comes to dealing with family. Especially when those two things come together. Family and money matters joined together. Oh, we are awesome. When it comes to giving inheritance, when it comes to giving mahar, when it comes to assigning the mahar, oh my God, we're the best. This is udkhulu fi silmi kafatan. Let's deal with that first. وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا خُطُوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ إِنَّهُ لَكُمْ عَدُوٌّ مُبِينٌ. He's absolutely, clearly an enemy to you. In other words, this call to compromise, to water down the principles of our faith, and to take religion seriously in some things and make a mockery of it and not even bring it up in other things. How many families I know personally, that I know, and that are even extensions of my own family, salat is a big deal. Salat is a big deal. But separation between men and women, out of the question. Hijab, out of the question. Don't bring it, don't even talk about it. No, we're not those kind of Muslim. No, but it's I don't even say like, fatwa, can you just read the Quran? No. We're doing namaz. That's good enough. When they say salat, they say namaz, right? Doing namaz is good enough. Don't bring up more. We have a chunk of Islam we're happy with. We don't need anything else more than that. Don't bring anything more than that. I knew families, and I'm not even bashing on people living in Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Egypt, or whatever. Let's talk about ourselves. There's so many families, they send their children to Sunday school. May Allah reward you, continue to send your children to Sunday school. Okay? But I remember this one cool story. This kid used to come to Sunday school, and we had one of these really zealous young brothers that was a Sunday school teacher, and he gave a whole 40-minute halaqah on the merits, the benefits of praying Fajr on time to these 12-year-old kids. This kid listens to this 40-minute thing, and by a miracle of Allah, he paid attention for 40 minutes, which is not possible for most 12-year-olds nowadays. He paid attention. Next morning, guess what he does? Monday morning, prays Fajr on time. The next week, the parents come raging through the masjid. How dare you corrupt my child? He has to go to school in the morning. You're waking him up early in the Fajr time. And he thinks he has to do it now. That's not why we bring him here. Just teach him how to read some du'as, and that's all we want from you people. Awesome. Sorry. We thought we were here to teach deen. Should back off. Subhanallah. This is the state we are in. No, don't teach my child religion, but to a point where we're comfortable. After, beyond our comfort zone, we're interested in ad-dukhul fi silm, just not kaffatan. And when that is the norm for the Muslim, then is it not, ittiba' khutuwat al-shaytan? If that's the case with most of us, we have a certain line we've drawn, then is it not the case that we are following the footsteps of shaitan? Have we not become or befriended what is clearly our enemy? إِنَّهُ لَكُمْ عَدُوٌ مُبِينٌ. May Allah Azza wa Jal help us and our families and our extended families become people who are motivated to enter into Islam completely and to make Islam dominate every aspect of our lives, be it domestic, be it career related, be it finance related. May Allah Azza wa Jal instill in us a mature mentality and a mature understanding of our deen. And may Allah Azza wa Jal help lift the ignorance that the ummah suffers from and the spiritual ailments that the ummah suffers from. And may Allah Azza wa Jal make us the generation that helps raise it out of that ignorance, and including ourselves. Barakallahu li wa lakum. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.